that, particularly when it comes to us ground troops. Joining me right now from Washington, Aaron David Miller. He is a vice president at the Woodrow Wilson International Center. He's also he's been an advisor to 6 secretaries of state on Arab-Israeli relations and all matters Middle East. And in Orlando, Florida, Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. He's a CNN military analyst and a former commanding general in the U.S. Army. Good to see both of you, gentlemen. So, General, to you first, is this a true disconnect between the president and the Pentagon, or is this, the real culture gap that sometimes happens with any White House and the Pentagon?
No, Frederica, and good morning. This is not a disconnect at all. I think this is a tempest that's been blown very much out of proportion by the reporting of it. There's no disconnect. I think you've heard that from both General Dempsey and the Pentagon spokesman. It's the chairman doing the things he's supposed to do. He's thinking ahead. He's thinking about potential options. He clearly said, hey, if we see this as a possibility, we will go to the president and have him make a decision. We would be appalled if General Dempsey was not thinking of future opportunities.
Okay, so Aaron, if that is the case, this really is customary and perhaps people are misinterpreting this. What is the public message then? And does this in any way kind of empower, if not give more credibility to ISIS?
Well, I think Mark's right. You have to distinguish between the possibility of the redeployment of thousands of American combat forces in Iraq and perhaps even in Afghanistan from the reality that we are going to have to use, as we're doing in Iraq now, special forces or special operators. And in Iraq, that number could double or triple. And once you begin to stand up Syrian allies, local allies, and that's going to be a tough sell, tough to do, you will have to probably deploy special operators or special forces into Syria as well. But again, the model is Afghanistan in the fall of '08. Good intelligence, local allies, special operators, and airstrikes. Whether it'll work or not to defeat ISIS is another matter, but I think Mark's right. This has really been blown way out of proportion.
And so, General, special ops, special forces, if they were engaged, isn't that boots on the ground?
It certainly is, but first of all, Frederica, as you know, I can't stand that expression of boots on the ground. These are forces in harm's way potentially. But when you're an advisor and you're contributing to another force doing things the right way, you have to be there with them. And I think that's maybe what General Austin asked the president, hey, can we send them forward? And the president said, not now, because the potential risk involved with having a special operator or a special forces troop being at the front line and potentially getting killed would really be quite devastating to the extension of the strategy today. There's a nuanced approach, and I think there is a disconnect between the military understanding of the terms and what the politicians, the media, and our public understand in terms of this boots on the ground.
And to both of you, is this late that the U.S. would take this kind of action? Does it come too late, meaning did it allow these forces to take too much control of Syria or to regroup enough to make this kind of impact in Iraq? Or, Aaron, you first, is this the time that needed to have been taken for the U.S. to get a better handle of who represents the rebels, the Syrian rebels, before giving them arms?
The conventional opposition or critique of the president is that we headed for the exits too fast in Iraq, and we were late to stand up a so-called moderate Syrian opposition in Syria. Look, there may be some truth to that, but the reality is ISIS feeds on the reality of 2 failing states, Syria and Iraq. It feeds on Nur al-Maliki's willful efforts to persecute and prosecute Sunnis, and it feeds on Bashar Assad's use of barrel bombs and chemical weapons against largely Sunni opponents. So I doubt, frankly, whether or not we could have fundamentally changed the trajectory. Had an agreement to leave 5,000, 10,000 American forces in Iraq been achievable, I think it would have helped.
In less than 10 seconds, General, too late?
No, it's not too late, not at all. But we have to reinforce, Frederica, this is a generational problem. I think a lot of people want quick solutions to this. This is going to take years, if not decades, to solve. So I think the president's slow approach or paced approach with the right operational tempo is the right way to go.
All right, Lieutenant General Mark Hertling and Aaron David Miller, thanks to both of you gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Frederica.
And we'll be right back with much more in the newsroom.